Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Manuel Carrillo, a successful surgeon, had plenty of reason to be proud of himself. He was handsome, talented, and rich. Any woman, even the most spoiled woman, would consider it an honor to marry him and become the mistress of his three-story house in a high-end residential area. However, at the age of 35, Manuel was single, which caused all kinds of rumors about him. Some people said he was indifferent to the female sex, and some claimed that he had sexual health problems, but nothing of this was true. He did not like to demonstrate to everyone his numerous amorous triumphs. That was his private life, and he preferred not to make his private life public. Dr. Carrillo took care of himself. Also, he played sports, and one of his favorite activities was horse riding. And he also loved canoeing on the river, hiking in the mountains, and skiing. In general, Dr. Manuel Carrillo preferred an active lifestyle and couldn't understand those who idly lay on the couch in front of the TV. In addition to sports, the man loved fishing, and not just loved, but was a fan of it since childhood. Manuel also considered the appearance of his nails the part of his profession and regularly got his nails done in a luxury spa. He repeated, "The hands are the surgeon's trademark. A patient should immediately trust a doctor who holds his life in his hands. And if the hands don't look good, there's no trust at all." By the way, the manicurist, a red-haired, gorgeous woman from Russia, Irina, was eagerly waiting for every meeting with a wealthy, handsome guy. And it was not only because of the generous tips. Irina had different plans for him. However, Manuel stubbornly pretended that he did not understand her hints. Perhaps the one for which he would sacrifice his precious freedom has not yet been born. Leaving his dark blue Lexus in the parking lot outside the supermarket, Manuel went shopping and suddenly noticed a young girl with a child. The boy was about 7 years old. But the girl is very young, Dr. Carrillo noted. How old was she when she became a mother? Anyway, I don't care about that, though. They're freezing. The girl and the boy sat on the bench, huddled together in the cold, piercing wind. It was still early April. Suddenly, Manuel felt pity for the girl and the child. She obviously had problems she couldn't solve herself. So maybe he should help them? The boy is almost crying, and the young mother is clearly distressed by her helplessness. Anyone who knew Dr. Manuel Carrillo would have said he was a very good man, and that was the plain truth. He did not have the cynicism common to many doctors. But most importantly, Manuel would never pass by a person in need of help. "Hello, miss. Do you need any help?" Manuel asked sympathetically. "Maybe there is something I can do for you? Don't be shy." And in response, the stranger sighed heavily and shook her head. Such a girl would definitely not ask for help, Manuel guessed. Poor, but proud. All right, I'll try it another way. Dr. Carrillo began to think, and then it hit him. I once thought about hiring a maid. Well, why not? I'm a single man. I work a lot, and sometimes I don't have the energy to clean my house. But I have enough money, and I'll help the girl with the child. "Young lady, I want to offer you something," he said. "By the way, my name is Dr. Manuel Carrillo. And you?" "My name is Lupita, and this is Carlos." "So, Lupita, I want to offer you a job as my maid. I really need a maid, so I was wondering if you'd accept this offer." Lupita was hesitant. Manuel noticed this and said, "Are you afraid of something? Don't be afraid. I'm not a criminal. I really need help, and I will pay a decent wage." Lupita did not know whether an attractive stranger in a luxury car was a maniac. Yes, there are pimps, and there are also those who sell children for donor organs. It could have been true. Lupita dressed poorly, but she had a beautiful face and was in a good shape. Looking at her, any trafficker would say, That's what I need. Well, they can sell Carlos for organs. No one will look for them. But still Lupita agreed. The girl watched Manuel carefully and suddenly realized that he would not hurt her or her son. So, do you still think I'm a maniac? No, I don't, Lupita smiled shyly. I accept. We accept, right, Carlos? The boy nodded. Great. Get in the car while I go to the supermarket to buy some food because there's an empty fridge at home. As Lupita and the child made their way to the car, Dr. Carrillo noticed that the boy was limping on one leg. The girl, intercepting his gaze, said, He fell badly off his bicycle, now he's limping. We don't have the money for surgery yet. What about Carlos' father? The man asked. But then he suddenly said, But it's none of my business. Lupita was embarrassed, but explained that the child had no father. Today they arrived from a village which was not far from the city. It is very difficult to find a job there, so they decided to try their luck in the city. There is always a chance to find a job in big cities. The surgeon nodded understandingly. It's clear the story is as old as time. People go to the city out of despair, not for the good life, as some people think, but in the hope of catching at least one of the most miserable options. Manuel left for the supermarket, thinking back to his life along the way. He had been used to loneliness since childhood, although it seemed that he, a handsome man that all women liked, he shouldn't know what loneliness means, and yet it was true. Manuel's parents, brilliant doctors, were often away on business trips to medical conferences, and in general they were always at work until late at night. Dr. Julio Carrillo and Dr. Lucia Silva were just beginning their medical careers, and they worked hard. While Manuel was a child, his parents left him with his grandmother, Julio's mother, who didn't bother to spend time with her grandson. She fed Manuel, made sure the boy looked neat, and walked him to kindergarten and then to school, but she rarely played or even just talked to him. She just didn't want to. Go, good luck, the old woman said, awkwardly stroking her grandson's head, and Manuel obediently walked away. At first he was offended, but then he decided, well, whatever. In fact, his grandmother had instilled in Manuel an immunity to loneliness. When the boy moved into 5th grade, he began to stay home alone. Being a self-sufficient boy, Manuel could not only heat dinner but also cook it. When his parents were away, the boy kept the apartment clean and tidy, and he didn't neglect his schoolwork. His parents never heard any complaints from neighbors about loud music and parties, and not surprisingly, none of that happened. And if Manuel occasionally invited some pretty girl over, no one was aware of it. And so it turned out that by the time he was 35, he was single. There were different affairs with women, after all. Manuel is an attractive man and certainly not a monk, but his affairs were short-lived and, as a rule, did not bind him to anything. At least that's what Manuel thought. Two people like each other and meet from time to time. Many call it for health, and Manuel, as a doctor, totally accepted this definition. Anyway, a serious long-term relationship was out of the question. Manuel was a wealthy man who had achieved everything on his own, but his parents had given him a path to live. So what? Any normal parent would help their child, especially when you consider that the boy had the potential to be a medical doctor when he was only 10 years old. And when he got older and started hiking and rafting, he often provided first aid for fractures, bruises, and frostbite, not to mention artificial respiration and heart massage. Manuel was an excellent student at the university, and in this case it was not his parents' merit. And then there was graduation, passing exams with the best score, internship, work in a state hospital, and then in a private clinic. And now Manuel Carrillo had a spacious, beautiful house, a luxury car, and everything he needed for a comfortable life. Comfort was one of the most important factors for him. He could easily live in bad conditions when he went camping. He wasn't afraid of extreme conditions, and he never whined. But still, Manuel liked a scented bath and other benefits of civilized living in a comfortable house much better. After adventures, he always wanted to go back to his house. Despite the almost unlimited options for entertainment, fishing remained Manuel's main passion. Whenever he traveled to the coast for a vacation, he would inevitably find out if there were places where he could go fishing. Exotic kinds of fish to be caught in a fancy resort was certainly a good thing, but fishing in a lake in some remote village, where no one knew or bothered Manuel, attracted him much more. For the successful surgeon, such a vacation was a fascinating adventure and a source of unforgettable emotions that he was deprived of in the metropolis. Manuel remembered a fishing trip to the suburbs 7 years ago. Back then he didn't want to go far, and the young men stopped at the lake, which was located at the entrance of the nearest village. According to his buddies, you can catch some rare kinds of fish there. Manuel was fishing in a boat, but it suddenly and unexpectedly leaked. It was a cold, late fall, and being in icy water was hardly a pleasant prospect. "Yeah, I shouldn't have gone fishing today. What if my legs cramp up?" he thought with fear. Having swam with difficulty to the shore, soaked and frozen, Manuel decided to go to a small village. The world is not without kind people. Maybe someone would let him get warm. Manuel knocked on the first house he saw. A fragile, blonde, and very beautiful girl in her 20s opened the door to him. Her huge turquoise eyes looked deeply and not without curiosity. "Is there something you needed?" she asked in a quiet, melodious voice. "Yes, I need to get warm," Manuel answered, shivering. "Don't think anything bad. I'm soaked and I just need to warm up a little and dry my clothes off." "Well, come on in." She didn't take long to answer. "I'll make you a cup of tea and you'll warm up. Won't your family mind?" "My stepdad won't be back soon. He'll probably be drunk again. My sister's away at her aunt's. We don't have a mother." Manuel was a little surprised that she was telling such unpleasant details to a stranger, but then he thought that she didn't have anyone else to tell about it. Manuel drank hot herbal tea, glancing at the hostess. Her name was Blanca. Her natural beauty was impressive. Blanca was different from any girl he had ever known. All the beautiful women Manuel had ever met were uninhibited, but they also behaved with ostentatious affectation. Blanca was restrained and sincere. Manuel felt sympathy for this extraordinary girl, and was getting stronger by the second. What was left for him to do? Well, to use all his charisma to charm Blanca. However, it was not difficult. Manuel had always had a great sense of humor, which helped him to win the favor of the ladies. By the way, Blanca also looked at Manuel with interest, and it was not a simple curiosity that arises at the sight of a stranger. When Manuel tried to kiss the beautiful girl, to his surprise, she did not pull away. As a result, the young people spent the night together. "You probably thought I was a woman of loose morals, ready to get in bed with anyone," she asked, resting her head on his shoulder. "No, I had no such thoughts," Manuel whispered. And he really didn't think so. It could hardly be called a temporary fling or a short-term weakness. They enjoyed being together, and nothing else mattered. Well, what difference did it make when their first night together happened if two people were attracted to each other? And at dawn, the stepfather showed up. He was drunk, just as Blanca had predicted. Manuel, to his great regret, had to leave. The man lived in the city, and Blanca in the suburbs. But could the distance be a barrier to love? When Blanca saw him off, the two lovers agreed to call and text each other. Fortunately, the age of social media was already here, and they would definitely meet again. It would be a crime not to repeat such a night. At first, there were calls and long conversations about all sorts of things, and above all, about their love. But a month went by, and Manuel realized that his feelings had cooled down. It surprised the young man, but it was true. Meetings between Blanca and Manuel became less frequent. and one day he just didn't answer the phone. No, Manuel didn't intentionally ignore it, but when Blanca called, he was with another girl. Soon Blanca realized it was over between them. The girl cried a lot and was depressed. He has decided that I am a loose moral girl after all, she thought with a sigh. But Blanca did not call him and beg him to come back. She decided to forget Manuel and live her life as before. After all, she had lived before without this amateur fisherman, but she could not forget him. Much later, Manuel realized that his feelings for Blanca most likely could not withstand the test of distance, and no wonder when there are so many beauties around him. But at that moment it seemed that everything would be different. But Manuel wasn't worried about that. He was used to freedom. Maybe love stories were not for him at all. Anyway, Manuel Carrillo was still single, and he enjoyed his life. So, thinking about his past, Manuel filled the cart with goodies and ended up with twice as much food as usual. On top of all that, he bought a carton of milk and some chocolate biscuits for the boy. On the way back, Manuel noted with satisfaction that the young mother and Carlos were waiting for him in a spacious and warm car. "Shall we go?" he asked cheerfully. Lupita nodded with a smile, and the boy became bolder and declared, "You have a cool car. I want to live in it." "I hope you like my house better than the car," the surgeon laughed. Lupita and Carlos moved in with Manuel Carrillo. The young woman fulfilled her duties as a housemaid, while the owner worked hard, and in his spare time he had fun and dated the most beautiful women in the city. Lupita got a job and a place to live, and Manuel got a perfectly tidy house and healthy food. The boy never starved. He got a computer and interesting games, which the surgeon bought him. In general, everyone was happy. Manuel and Lupita became good friends over time. They talked a lot about different topics. Manuel told his new friend something about his life, except for some personal details, but Lupita hardly said anything about her past, and she didn't say a word about the boy. The only thing Manuel knew about the child was that he had fallen off his bicycle and injured his leg. "We should send the boy for a checkup," the surgeon once thought, but Lupita never mentioned who the boy's father was or where he is. However, it is understandable. Single mothers do not like to talk about it, and, after all, she is not obliged to share the secrets of their life with a stranger. So a month passed. Manuel was resting after another surgery when his cell phone rang. It was Pedro Aguero, his classmate. "Hello, Manuel." "Hi, Pedro. What's up?" "We decided to organize a reunion. Everyone will come with their spouses. What about you?" "Everything is as it should be," Manuel said unexpectedly. "I have a beautiful young wife." "I didn't know you got married," Pedro said with surprise. "Well, I got married not long ago." The classmates talked about other things for a while, and when they said goodbye, Manuel cursed himself. Why he had lied. Manuel really wanted to go to the reunion, which would be in 2 weeks. But in addition, he wanted to show off his beautiful wife. Manuel had a prestigious job, a beautiful house, and a luxury car. The only thing left was to find a beautiful wife. Obviously, he didn't have time to get married in 2 weeks, and he didn't want to. So he had to find a woman to play the role of a spouse, and in fact, there was nothing left to do now. Manuel thought of all the girls he knew and concluded that none of them were right for him. They were all good-looking, and their manners were all right, but Manuel knew that it might backfire on him. The successful surgeon was well aware that any of his girlfriends would catch on to the idea and begin to push to make it a reality. Well, no. And then Manuel remembered his maid. Why not? Great option. Despite her modest clothes, Lupita is a very attractive girl, and if she is dressed nicely and her hair and makeup are done, she will be gorgeous. And Manuel can pay her for that. Well, there is no better candidate to be his wife. Lupita, I need to talk to you, he said as soon as he entered the house. The girl was afraid. What if he decided to fire me? Lupita thought with fear. Where will Carlos and I go? Is something wrong, Manuel Carrillo? She asked. Let's go to my office. Surely he'll fire me. Lupita entered and timidly sat down on the chair. Lupita, I have an unusual offer. She was relieved to know she wouldn't be fired. What is it, Manuel? Well, I have a reunion in 2 weeks. Everyone will be with their spouses, and I'm still single. Manuel shook his shoulders and continued. Anyway, Lupita, I suggest you come with me. You would have to pretend to be my wife, just an unobtrusive lie. Lupita was shocked. She had no idea that Manuel Carrillo could have an inferiority complex. Otherwise, how else could it be explained that a self-sufficient adult, moreover a rich and successful man, was ashamed of being single? Why does he even care what others think of him? Manuel, noticing the expression on the maid's face, added, Well, don't worry, I will pay for that. And what about Carlos? Lupita asked the first thing that came to mind. Well, what about Carlos? I promise we won't stay long. Your son will play with a game console, and I don't think he'll even notice we're not here. Lupita sighed. Actually, the question about her son was nothing more than an excuse. The boy isn't 3 years old, after all, and he can stay at home alone. But Lupita was terribly uncomfortable. She didn't want to lie to people, and that's something she shouldn't have said at all. Lupita? The maid was silent. She did not know what to say. Lupita, I know I shocked you, but it really isn't that bad. At least you'll have a chance to go out, to relax, to have fun. And you'll get good money, and you won't see these people again anyway. Come on, Lupita, say yes. Okay, I agree. The next day, Manuel brought a breathtaking blue dress with gold trim and rhinestones for the maid. In addition to the dress, there were lacquered stiletto shoes. Wow, a man exclaimed as she tried on the dress and shoes. Even better than I imagined. Lupita, come to the mirror. The woman obeyed. Is that really me? She thought. However, it was only the beginning. On reunion day, Manuel took the maid to the best beauty salon in the city. Lupita visited the hairdresser, makeup artist, and manicurist. Manuel was waiting for Lupita in the car. When she came out of the salon, a sophisticated lover and a true connoisseur of female beauty froze with his mouth open. Lupita's hair was styled in a classy hairstyle, and her delicate makeup emphasized the freshness of her skin. On the way to his school, Manuel thought that his maid was indeed a miracle. She was gorgeous, a real beauty. Manuel had compared Lupita to an uncut diamond the first day he met her, and he wasn't far from the truth. If you take off her rags and dress her in branded clothes, the difference is obvious, the man thought. And would anyone else argue that it's not clothes that make a person beautiful? Manuel's classmates admired Lupita and told him how young and beautiful his wife was. Their spouses, in turn, looked at her unkindly. Lupita wanted to hide somewhere, but when she relaxed a little, she realized she was enjoying this party. The modest maid had never heard so many compliments about her before, and she could only dream of other women getting angry seeing her beautiful dress. When Manuel asked her to dance, even the angry ladies admired the incredibly beautiful couple. Now she did not want to go anywhere. Well, when would Lupita have another opportunity to spend the evening in a good restaurant in the company of a handsome, wealthy man? After all women within a radius of 100 kilometers are crazy about him. She will not have another such chance. She should enjoy the moment. Moreover, she will even get money for it. Manuel was also rejoicing. It was a great show. After a while, those present were walking around the school, accompanied by Teresa Arambula. The elderly woman was telling her former students how the school had changed over the years. Suddenly, as she walked past one of the classrooms, Lupita saw a picture of a girl in a black frame on the stand, and she was shocked. Next to the picture of the beautiful blonde, there were other pictures in mourning frames. "This is the memory board," Teresa explained, and began to list the names of the students who had passed away. Manuel looked at his wife, and noticing that she was crying, asked, "Lupita, is everything all right? Should we go outside?" She just nodded. "What happened?" Manuel asked as they sat down on the chairs in the hall close to the memorial. "Blanca Fonseca is my older sister. She also went to this school, but not for long, 2 or 3 years. After our mother died of cancer, our stepfather and I moved to the country. My stepfather drank heavily, and the apartment was sold for debt. God, I don't even want to remember that time. Was it that horrible?" Lupita nodded and continued. "Blanca got pregnant in the village, and her boyfriend left her before she even knew it. Blanca died in childbirth, bleeding heavily. It happened 6 years ago, and to me it was like yesterday. Now I'm looking after Carlos. He's her son, and we came here because my stepfather keeps drinking, and he started hitting me and Carlos. We had to run away." "Blanca?" Manuel thought. "Blanca?" As the couple returned to the banquet hall, he walked over to the memory board and looked closely at Lupita's sister. Manuel suddenly thought he was going to fade in a second. It was the same girl he had once spent a hot night with. They walked back in silence, each one in his own thoughts. Lupita thought of her sister. One picture followed the other. She and Blanca were still young, splashing around in the bathtub in the summer house. Then they were going to school, Lupita in the 1st grade, Blanca in the 3rd. Then the sisters told each other about their first love experiences. And then Lupita learns that her beloved sister is gone, but there is a baby who needs her. The world came crashing down. Manuel guessed it was possible that Blanca got pregnant by him. At least the timing is right. So that means Carlos was his son? So maybe, then, outside the supermarket, it was a call of blood? Manuel didn't mind a nice son like Carlos, but how would he look the maid in the eye now? Manuel didn't know how to tell Lupita that he was her sister's lover, for in the girl's eyes he was a scoundrel and a bastard who had abandoned her sister in a difficult situation, and yet he has made up his mind. "Lupita," Manuel said when they were halfway to the house, "there is something I have to tell you. You may hate me, but you need to know." Lupita wanted to say something, but Manuel wouldn't let her. Otherwise he would have hesitated and ended up not saying a word to her. Manuel chose his words carefully and stammered with nervousness at every word. And yet he told her the whole truth from the beginning to the end. Lupita listened without interrupting, and in the end, she could not hold back her tears. Manuel kept talking. He was afraid Lupita would say something awful, so he tried not to be silent. He desperately wanted to find an excuse for his shameful act, though he knew in his heart there were no excuses. Manuel wondered how he could spend the night with a girl and not realize that they went to the same school. But after thinking about it for a while, the man decided there was nothing wrong with that. According to Lupita, Blanca only attended the school for 2 or 3 years, and she was in a different class. Besides, Manuel thought Blanca was in her 20s, and he himself was 28 at the time, so it didn't occur to Manuel that he might remember the girl. "Lupita, we have arrived," he said, and she silently got out of the car. When the master and the maid entered the house, Carlos was already asleep, though he realized that she was not a maid anymore. They went to their rooms, but no one could fall asleep. Lupita went out on the balcony, and when she looked down, she noticed the light in the kitchen was on. so she wasn't the only one not getting any sleep tonight. On a sudden impulse, Lupita went down to the kitchen. Manuel was sitting at the table over a bottle of cognac and a plate of cheese, lemon, and olives. "Want some?" he asked. Lupita did not like alcohol, but tonight she would make an exception. There were too many emotions to be restrained. "Lupita, you have not said a word to me," Manuel spoke softly. "Are you judging me?" "Oh, Manuel Carrillo, who am I to judge?" Lupita asked. "Well, I see it." "What do you see?" she shrugged. "I don't know how I feel myself. But I can tell you one thing for sure. I'm not judging anyone. You were young, and then I don't know the whole story. And even if you had stayed with Blanca, it's no guarantee that she would be alive." "Well, she would have had a chance," Manuel said. "My parents are medics, and they could have found Blanca a good gynecologist. She was probably having health problems, and I honestly didn't know Blanca was pregnant." "Well, you see," Lupita smiled, "Blanca didn't tell you about the pregnancy. No, I don't blame her, but I don't blame you either. It just happened." "Thank you," the master of the house smiled back. "It really means a lot to me." They talked for another hour. To be honest, Manuel had not expected to be forgiven so quickly and was relieved. Then he sat down next to Lupita and put his arm around her. "Lupita," Manuel said softly, and suddenly began kissing her. They did not know how they had ended up in Manuel's bedroom. Some unknown force took them there. The same force that had brought them together near the supermarket. For a second, Manuel thought about déjà vu and other nonsense, but immediately chased that idea away. When Lupita woke up, Manuel was still asleep. He was smiling in his sleep, but Lupita was completely distraught. "God, what have I done?" the girl thought in horror. "I'm sure he'll think I'm just a stupid girl ready to go to bed with anyone who cradles me." Lupita could not have known that her sister had once told Manuel almost the same words. "Damn cognac, I've got to get out of here," she decided. "How can I work for this man now?" When Manuel woke up, he felt reborn. He opened his eyes, but did not see Lupita next to him, and immediately got up. "Lupita!" he called cheerfully. "Lupita?" There was no answer. Manuel assumed that she had gone to her room. He knocked on the door gently, and then he heard the answer and entered her room. "Lupita, what are you doing?" Manuel asked perplexedly. "I am packing my stuff." "But why?" "Because we weren't supposed to... well, you know what I mean." "Oh, Lupita!" Manuel exclaimed, running his hands through his thick, dark hair. "Maybe we shouldn't have, but it doesn't matter now. It's already happened." "So what?" "I should have thought before." "Is that what you were going to say? I shouldn't be frivolous." "Lupita," Manuel grimaced. "I assure you I didn't mean to say anything like that, and I wasn't even thinking about it. Why do women make everything so complicated and dramatic?" "But men take everything too simply and indifferently," Lupita parried. "Come, see, conquer." Manuel realized that arguing with Lupita and proving anything to her was useless. If it had not been for the reunion and cognac, there would not have been this meaningless conversation. But now, what about Carlos? The boy needs surgery. He is a surgeon. He must help him. In fact, Manuel would help anyway, for now he knew why he has to do it, without any doubts. "Come, see, conquer," Manuel muttered. "Well, okay. I'm not going to argue with you. But what about the boy? Have you thought about the boy? Where will you take him now?" Lupita twinkled her eyes in confusion. "No, you didn't even think about his health," he stated, "and I am planning to take care of the surgery tomorrow. So, Lupita, don't be silly. Let's just forget what happened and get on with our partnership. Is it all right with you?" Lupita nodded. "Well, that's the deal." Manuel left the room, and Lupita sat down on the bed and thought. In fact, she did not like it at all. She knew she would never be able to forget Manuel's strong yet gentle hands and those lips. Now she understood the women who dreamed of getting married to this handsome, charming man. Lupita was a smart girl, and she was well aware of her employer's love affairs. She certainly could not compete with these beautiful, stylish, sophisticated girls who were often in Manuel's bed. She wouldn't even dare to think about it. Manuel would continue to have fun with his hotties, and Lupita will only be left to remember a beautiful night that will never happen again. But he is right. Lupita should not only think of herself, but also her nephew. After all, it is not Carlos' fault that his aunt was so frivolous, and if Manuel does help them with the surgery, well, Lupita will be very grateful to him, and later she'll think about a new place to live and a job. The surgery costs a lot of money, said the head of the children's department at the hospital. A lot of money. I don't care, Manuel said. If this surgery helps him, I'm willing to pay any money. Manuel had already done the DNA test, and now he knew for sure that Carlos was his son. Can I ask you what motivated you to help this child? No, Manuel said sternly. Does it make any difference? No, it's your money, Benito Rojas shrugged. You can bring the boy tomorrow. We'll take him to the hospital for tests, and then we'll set a date for the surgery. Thank you very much. Lupita, Manuel said with a smile as he crossed the threshold, I have amazing news. Carlos is going to have surgery. Wonderful news. She was really happy. Thank you so much, Manuel Carrillo. Manuel Carrillo, he thought as he went up to his office. It's crazy. The girl spent the night with me, and instead of taking advantage of it, she keeps calling me Manuel Carrillo. You're getting old, Senor Carrillo. Manuel walked over to the mirror and, not seeing any signs of old age, showed his tongue to his reflection. He took his laptop and tried to work, but he couldn't. He thought of Lupita's beautiful, delicate body, her lips that resembled ripe cherries, and her satiny skin. Memories like that could make a man go crazy. So Manuel decided to visit Mario Martinez, an old friend he had studied with at the university. Mario, just like Manuel, was a handsome man and a heartbreaker. Oh, they broke a lot of girls' hearts, even though they were the children of respectable people. Only Mario's parents were educators. His father, Carmelo Martinez, was a university professor. He worked at the same medical university where they studied, and his mother, Dolores Apanco, was a geography teacher at the private high school. Unlike Manuel, Mario is married and seems to be happy. When Manuel first saw Ivana, a friend's future wife, he was a little disappointed. Ivana was not a blatant fool, but she was somehow colorless. She wasn't impressive. The only decoration of Ivana's appearance was her golden and silky smooth hair. But, unfortunately, the girl had braided her hair, so that not everyone could see the beauty of her hair. Everything else was completely unimpressive. Light eyelashes and eyebrows, thin lips, unremarkable skinny body, and the style of clothing were not impressive. Mario Martinez could easily win over any pretty girl. Why did he choose the most unremarkable girl? But when Manuel got to know Ivana better, he thought Mario met the best girl in the universe. When he looked at the two of them together, he knew that this was what the two halves of the whole looked like. Over time, Ivana learned how to do beautiful makeup, and instead of braids, she wore a stylish haircut on her long hair. The birth of Jenny, who was Manuel's goddaughter, made Ivana's body look much better. Love, happy marriage, and motherhood truly transformed this amazing woman. Manuel sincerely envied his friend because he was able to detect a future beauty in a modest girl. First of all, I saw the beauty of the soul, Mario liked to say. The rest came with it. Jenny turned 5 this year, and Manuel thought it would be a good idea to introduce his goddaughter to his son. Manuel knew his friends would always welcome him, listen to him, and give him good advice, so he went to visit Mario and Ivana. The events of the last 2 days required a thoughtful analysis that Manuel could not deal with alone. When the man revealed his story to his friends, Mario said, "I always knew you had some kind of trail from the past behind you." "What are you talking about?" Manuel grinned mockingly. "I didn't know anything." "Mario is right," Ivana said. "There's always been something mysterious about you, some kind of secret past." "Stop fascinating," he exclaimed, and Ivana, laughing, replied, "But that's how it eventually turned out to be." "Well, yes, you're right." Manuel nodded with a smile. "But what am I supposed to do with it now?" "What would you say, Ivana? It's easier for you to understand, Lupita, you know. You are a woman. Well, when you go home, go to a flower store, buy the most beautiful bouquet, and tell Lupita that you love her. And come what may, women love determined men. And on Friday, come to us together. I'll cook dinner. I'm already looking forward to it." Manuel loved Ivana's cooking. This golden-haired magician knew how to surprise people with a new culinary masterpiece. Manuel tried to limit his eating, but when visiting friends he could never resist. So, today, after eating a delicious homemade pizza, the doctor felt like a fat, lazy cat. "Don't forget the flowers and declarations of love," his friends admonished him. And that's exactly what Manuel did. When he left the house and said, "Don't expect me for dinner," Lupita felt a pang of jealousy. All evening she had imagined the lucky woman with whom her employer was spending the night. Lupita was really surprised when Manuel came home with a large basket of exotic flowers, which he immediately handed to her. "Why?" Lupita asked, and immediately berated herself. "Oh, you idiot! Normal women just enjoy flowers, and I ask why. What could be stupider?" "I just felt like giving you flowers," Manuel smiled. "Thank you. Very beautiful flowers. Lupita, I love you, and I want to be with you. You don't have to say anything. If you are not ready to say the same, I will wait as long as it takes." Well, finally he did it. He confessed. What did Ivana say? Come what may? But something told him that there should be happiness, lots and lots of happiness. His premonition had not deceived him. Lupita smiled and said, "Why waste time waiting?" The next day they packed Carlos to the hospital. "Don't be afraid. They will only check your leg, and they will fix it," Lupita explained. "Does it hurt?" the boy asked, frightened. "No, they give you a shot and you won't feel a thing," Manuel reassured him. "You will wake up and your feet will be good." "That's great. Will you come to see me?" "Of course, dear," Lupita answered. "We will visit you often, especially because Manuel works there." Lupita came out of the hospital and looked for the window of Carlos' room. She went over to wave to him. She headed toward the bus stop but changed her mind. She wanted to walk. The city, which at first seemed strange and hostile to her, now seemed welcoming, festive, and pleasant. The young woman's soul sang. A bright streak seemed to be coming into her life. Carlos would now be able to walk normally, and Lupita had been anxiously awaiting the time when her son would go to school. If Manuel had not come to their lives, Carlos would have had to endure the mockery of his classmates. Alas, sometimes children are too cruel. Without Manuel, Lupita would not have known true love. She had relationships before. She was 29, but there was nothing like what she had experienced with Manuel, not even in her wildest dreams. Lupita was walking down the street and smiling, and when she saw a beauty salon on her way, she suddenly entered it. The smile never left Lupita's face. "Hello," the receptionist greeted her. "What can I do for you? I would like to—" Lupita hesitated. Only now she realized that she had been to the beauty salon only twice in her life, and the second time was before the reunion. She decided that from now on she would visit a beauty salon at least once a month. "Could a hairdresser help me find a new hairstyle?" Lupita said after a short pause. Yes, sure, the receptionist smiled with her bright red lips. The hairdresser will be free in a moment. In the meantime, you can have a look at the magazines. Maybe you'll like something. Together they chose for Lupita a long square haircut with bangs to her eyebrows. A completely different woman looked at her from the mirror. She was no longer a troubled single mother of a disabled child, but a glamorous young woman who appreciated herself. After the haircut, her wheat-colored hair looked much better and more attractive. Lupita looked about 5 years younger. "You must be in love?" the hairdresser asked slyly. "In great love," Lupita admitted. "Is it really that obvious?" "You look radiant. My advice to you, wherever your man is, don't let him go." "I won't," she said with a smile. As she left the beauty salon, Lupita said a warm goodbye to the receptionist and walked away. "Miss, aren't you in the wrong address?" Manuel asked playfully as he entered the house. "Well, if you insist, I can leave," Lupita answered in the same tone. She was wearing a cute silk robe. Lupita's new haircut looked great, and the light makeup only highlighted the natural beauty of her face. Manuel was looking at her and thinking, she is the most beautiful girl in the world. Most of all, Manuel wanted to be in the bedroom with Lupita right now, but there were other plans for tonight that she didn't know about. "Did you change your hairstyle? I like it. It's just in time because we're going to dinner tonight. I'll introduce you to someone." "Do you want me to meet your friends?" Lupita asked surprisingly. The expression on her face indicated that it was a pleasant surprise for her. "Well, why not? You are the woman I love, and I would like everyone to know that. When Carlos finally recovers, I will introduce you to my parents. They are wonderful." Their relationship was developing rapidly. Lupita was both pleased and frightened. Sometimes she felt that her relationship with Manuel betrayed her sister's memory, but on the other hand, Lupita had given Carlos a father, his real father. And most importantly, she deserved that happiness. When Manuel mentioned meeting his parents, Lupita panicked. What if Manuel's father or mother did not like her? Apparently they are respectable people. Probably she is not the kind of fiancé they dream of for their son. "Lupita, stop it. Seriously. All your thoughts are reflected in your face," Manuel laughed. "Let me guess. Now you're thinking that my parents might not like you?" From the confused look on her face, Manuel realized he was right. He couldn't help but laugh. "Everything will be fine, I promise you. I've already told them about you." "Told them what?" "Everything, Lupita," Manuel answered. "I have told them everything. Now let's get ready. And I told my friends about you yesterday too, and now they are very excited to meet you. Ivana and Mario really like Manuel's chosen one." "Finally, you've met a decent girl," Mario said when the ladies went to the kitchen. "Try not to lose her." "I know, Mario," Dr. Carrillo smiled happily. And in the kitchen there was a woman's conversation. "You know, Lupita, you're the only Manuel's woman I want to communicate with," Ivana confessed. Lupita was embarrassed. The friend's wife was so elegant, so attractive, so clever, but Lupita was just a poor single mother from the countryside. Was she more interesting than the ladies of the same circle? "Don't even think about it," Ivana laughed when the guest voiced her thoughts. "What intellectuals are you talking about? Refined sluts, dreaming to get a wealthy husband, that's what I call them. Because you can't hide your personality, no matter how many branded clothes you wear. And you're cool, you're real. I really want you to be my friend." Lupita didn't mind that, and neither did Ivana, so she told her. "Well, that's great," Ivana summed up. "Now let's go to our men because they must be starving." The evening passed in a warm and relaxed atmosphere. Lupita liked Manuel's friends, and she wouldn't mind inviting them over. Well, Lupita's cooking skills are not as good as Ivana's, but she can cook delicious dinner, too. Manuel and Lupita had a great time, walking in the park, feeding the ducks, and eating the delicious ice cream. The lovers went fishing on a private pond and enjoyed going to restaurants. Love is beautiful, but Carlos' health comes first. The next day, Manuel and Lupita visited the boy. They bought him delicacies and sweets. The little boy was happy about the treats, but he missed Manuel's home. All in all, Carlos was doing well. The thought that he would stop limping and start running fast again warmed his little heart. "Congratulations, the surgery was a success," the pediatric surgeon said with a smile. "Thank you so much," Lupita cried out, and tears came out of her eyes. "Why are you crying?" Manuel laughed. "All the worst is over. There is still a rehabilitation period, but we did it, Lupita." "It's okay. I'm crying tears of happiness." After he was discharged from the hospital, Manuel himself gave his son a rehabilitative massage. And when he was at work, Lupita would help the boy to walk around the house and sometimes even outside. The stairs were the hardest part for Carlos, but they made it together. After a month, Carlos could walk without assistance. "We did it!" they chanted in three voices when the boy reached 10 meters. And then Manuel went to the store and bought a good bottle of wine and a milkshake that Carlos loved so much. "Let's celebrate our first major achievement," Manuel said a toast at dinner. The cemetery in the village was quiet. Only the cry of a crow broke the silence of the kingdom of those who had finished their journey on earth. Manuel, Lupita, and Carlos were standing near a grave on which a stone crop was blooming, a surprisingly beautiful flower despite its name. "Well, hello, Blanca," Lupita said quietly and crossed herself. "That's how our life has turned out. I hope I didn't offend you." Manuel thought, Blanca, why didn't you tell me anything? You were too arrogant, but I had the right to know." Carlos could not remember his mother. Well, he knew that Lupita had a sister, but for him there was only one mother, the one who had sacrificed everything for him, her personal life, the opportunity to get an education, and to become a self-sufficient person. So maybe it's time to tell the boy the truth now in front of the grave of the woman who gave him his life. "Is that my aunt?" Carlos asked quietly, and in doing so he unwittingly helped the adults. "No, son," Lupita shook her head through tears. "It is your mother. She gave birth to you, and then she was gone, and I adopted you. I did the right thing, didn't I?" "Of course," the child nodded. "I was a baby, and I couldn't live alone." How clever and sensitive he is, Lupita thought. He doesn't even ask questions about his father. She had no idea how she would tell Carlos that Manuel was his father, but Lupita knew for sure that she shouldn't do that today. They need to give the boy time to process the news that Blanca was his mother. Thank goodness he took the information painlessly, but that's enough for today. After putting a bouquet of Blanca's favorite roses on the grave, they left. "You did a good job," Manuel said to Lupita at home. He managed to explain it gently and carefully, and Carlos was fine with it. "But you know that's not all we have to confess," she sighed. "I know, but we'll get through it. We will choose the right moment." A week later, Manuel took Lupita and Carlos to his parents' house. Lucia Silva and Julio Carrillo lived in a spacious apartment downtown. Both Manuel's mother and father had already reached retirement age, but still worked in the hospital. Lucia Silva worked as a doctor in a private nursing home, and her husband worked in a cardiac health center. Manuel told his parents everything, so they weren't waiting for just some woman their son was about to marry. Lucia and Julio were waiting for their beloved grandson and the precious woman who raised him. There were plenty of drinks, appetizers, entrees, and desserts on the table. "Well, Mom, you did your best," Manuel exclaimed, handing Lucia a huge bouquet of her favorite chrysanthemums. "Well, you always know how to please the ladies," Mother giggled. "And now I only please two ladies, you and Lupita. Oh no, and Ivana, but that's different." "Why don't you introduce your fiancée?" Father asked with a sneer. Well, and this adorable young man as well. My bad. Manuel slapped his forehead. Then he introduced them to each other. So, the official part is over. Shall we go to the table, Julio said. I'm very hungry. And he added, speaking to Carlos, what do you think about it, young man? I'm all for it, he assured them, and everyone sat down at the table. They ate in silence for the first half-hour. Lupita looked at her son and envied him. He seemed to feel relaxed. After all, it was his biological family. But she was a little uncomfortable. But after a while, there was no trace of Lupita's fears that Manuel's parents might not like her. Lucia Silva and Julio Carrillo spoke to her in a friendly manner, not asking too many questions and making jokes. Lupita relaxed, but the best part was ahead. A moment of your time, Manuel said. I have news for you. Good news, I hope, the mother smiled with a sly look between her son and Lupita. You can be sure of that, he answered. And then Manuel left the table, went over to his beloved, and knelt in front of her. Lupita, will you marry me? I promise to love you all my life, and to be the best husband in the universe. Yes, Lupita whispered, I will. Let's drink to that, Julio said. They took a cab home. The family settled in the back seat. Carlos fell asleep, and Lupita rested her head on Manuel's shoulder and closed her eyes, thinking what a lucky woman she was. When they arrived, Manuel gently took his son in his arms and carried him inside. I like your parents very much, she said. They like you too, her future husband smiled. A month passed. Do you, Manuel Carrillo, agree to marry Lupita Fonseca? I do. Do you, Lupita Fonseca, agree to marry Manuel Carrillo? I do. I declare you husband and wife. The young couple exchanged rings and said wedding vows to each other, and the guests rushed to congratulate them. Be happy, my dears, Lucia said emotionally as she hugged the newlyweds. Manuel, you are the winner, Julio approvingly exclaimed. You have found such a beautiful girl. I wish you love and happiness and many children. How beautiful you are, Ivana said admiringly. Congratulations. Mario hugged his friend and kissed Lupita's hand. Congratulations. They heard many more warm words. Then the guests sprinkled rice and rose petals. When I grow up, I will marry Jenny, Carlos declared in the limousine that was taking them to one of the best restaurants in the city. Does Jenny know about that? Lupita laughed. Well, I haven't officially proposed yet, the boy said seriously, but I told her I liked her. An iron argument, Manuel summarized. A honeymoon in Paris is a dream of any woman, but for a poor girl from the countryside, it's more like a fiction movie. It just can't be real. Carlos stayed with his grandparents. A few days before the wedding, Manuel and Lupita had another frank conversation. Mommy, will Manuel be my daddy now? Carlos asked while Lupita was getting her nails done and Manuel was studying a fishing supply catalog. When he heard his son's question, he put the catalog aside and said, Carlos, he says, come here, please. I need to talk to you in a manly way. I'm listening, the boy answered in a mature manner. Manuel didn't know where to start. I will not be your daddy, he said with a sigh. Carlos, I am your biological father. I knew your mother many years ago. It's a sad story, and when you grow up, we'll be sure to tell it to you. You had an affair with my mother, and then you left her? Carlos asked sternly, like in the movies. Well, we can say that, Manuel nodded. We broke up, and I didn't know anything about you. It sounded like an attempt to justify himself, and Manuel got angry with himself. But his son was already hugging his father, whispering, It's okay, Dad. So now Carlos knew that he was staying with his biological grandparents. He liked them from the first day they met. The newlyweds left for Paris with a relieved heart. Ashamed to admit it, Lupita whispered to her husband with a smile. But I've never been on an airplane before. Well, you can make up for that with me, Manuel grinned. I hope we will travel around the world very often now. And the man was right, because after visiting Paris, they decided to go to Istanbul. The spouses went through all the sales and bought so much stuff that it seems they could dress up the entire city. However, Lupita and Manuel did not plan to dress up the whole city, but their relatives and friends. They bought fashionable and beautiful clothes for themselves, Julio, Lucia, and Carlos, and they didn't forget Ivana and Mario's family. It must be really expensive, Ivana exclaimed. You won't believe it, Ivana. It's much cheaper than here, Lupita replied with a laugh. You look pale, Ivana remarked. Oh yes, I do not feel well today. I feel nauseous, maybe because of the flight. It happens, but something tells me it has nothing to do with the flight, Ivana smiled slyly. How is your period? Do you think that... Exactly. On the way home, Lupita stopped at the drugstore and bought a pregnancy test. It turned out to be positive. At first, Lupita wanted to surprise her husband. The mother-to-be excitedly walked around the house and wondered how to surprise him. But in the end, she couldn't resist and called Manuel. She told him that he was going to be a father for the second time. The husband was extremely happy. A couple of months later, the three of them walked Carlos to first grade. The ultrasound showed that Manuel and Lupita were having a girl. Carlos suggested naming his baby sister Sheila, and the parents-to-be accepted the idea. The grandparents, who already had a grandchild, were doubly happy. We thought we would never have grandchildren, Lucia exclaimed, and now we got two. They were looking forward to the birth of their granddaughter, after which they decided to retire. By the way, Ivana and Mario, inspired by the example of friends, are now also thinking of kids. Manuel beat me, he lamented. I thought I was a more experienced father, and it turns out he has a son older than our Jenny, and now they are expecting a second baby. Be jealous, but not too much, Manuel laughed. Carlos is in the first grade, and, unlike many of his peers, he enjoys it. The boy has fallen in love with the physical education classes. When the parents were asked to discuss what clubs and activities their children wanted to attend, Carlos did not hesitate to choose sports. Well, the son turned out to be as good as his father. Manuel and Lupita are getting ready to become parents and are counting the days until this happy event.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.